that wasn't loud enough. Wait. There we go. I'm doing something a little different today. We're gonna have this video in vintage black and white. I thought it'd be cute to do because today's movie is in black and white. And I haven't done it yet, so trying to make it a bit more interesting. Welcome to day 23 of 25 wild Christmas review days. It's the eve of the eve. We're almost there, folks. Christmas days are coming, but we still got a few things that I'd like to talk about. Today, we're going to talk about a classic. It's very understandable if you've never seen this movie before, but to give you a little insight, this is the origins of where the "I wish I was never born" cliche came from. I gave you some time to guess. Uh-oh, time's up. This is It's a Wonderful Life. Released in 1946, the story follows the life of a man named George Bailey, who, in the present day, on Christmas Eve in the film, is about to jump off a bridge and end his life. This is all being watched by a bunch of angels up in the heavens, specifically by one of the angels named Clarence, who is assigned to be George's guardian angel. Both Clarence and the viewer get an insight to what's led up to George contemplating the idea of suicide. The story is told in the form of a flashback, as we see George's entire life leading up to the present day. We start out with him as a young boy and see how he lost hearing in his left ear, and we get an insight to how his life goes from good to worse. George as an individual is somebody who's always been giving. He always takes the opportunity to make people happy and always tries to figure out a way to make things work. However, on the night of Christmas Eve, his Uncle Billy, who works with him in his father's bank, ends up losing $8,000 while he intended to deposit it in the bank. After finding this out, George absolutely snaps, realizing that he's going to lose the business and also partially go to jail as he has nothing to show the bank examiner. This also means that a man named Mr. Potter, a rich skinflint, will be able to take over the entire town. Also, Mr. Potter's the one that finds the money. I guess I should have probably mentioned that. After snapping in front of his whole entire family because he's sick of being the one that gives back but never gets anything in return, George decides to end his life and plans on jumping off the bridge we see in the beginning. After watching the flashback, Clarence is given his mission and is sent down to Earth, where it's his responsibility to show George that his life is very valuable and he shouldn't waste it. With George not convinced and thinking that it would have been better if he was never born at all, Clarence decides to show him an alternate world where he was never born to make him realize that his life does in fact matter, and if it wasn't for George, a lot of things wouldn't have happened in the world that he lives in today. Giving George the insight that the loss of one person can in fact change the whole reality of things. Obviously, the one thing that everybody expects to see in this movie is the alternate world where George isn't born. And although that does play a very small role in the film, that's only about like the last 30 to 20 minutes in the film, I like the alternate world that we see, and I like how you can clearly tell they did a lot of work making sure that, because George didn't save his brother from drowning in the water in the lake, he would have died. That means he would have never gone to war, and that meant that other people would have died because his brother Harry wouldn't have been able to save those people. So I like how clever they thought of when creating the chains to everything that would have happened. But the chain of events, seeing that one man's life can definitely affect everyone around him, and possibly the whole entire town in this case, seeing that without him it would have been a completely different world, I like that aspect. And I like the whole cliche of, I wish you were never born, or I wish this was different. There's an iCarly episode, coincidentally it's also the Christmas episode, where Carly wished that her brother Spencer was born normal, and we get a little It's a Wonderful Life moment going on here as well, seeing Carly's life if Spencer was normal. And the chain of events, they work as well there. The main thing when it comes to doing It's a Wonderful Life cliche is you need to be very careful on the chain of events to everything that leads up to the reason why this person was important. And so far, a lot of the adaptions that I've seen of this cliche done in multiple shows or even in movies, because I know the Muppets have also done this cliche as well. They've done A Christmas Carol And they've also done this, but their version of it isn't called a Muppet Wonderful Life. It's a completely different title for their movie. But I just think that's important. Careful planning, because then that'll make your story work even better. It'll make sense. I only saw this film a few years ago. I've heard about it. I never saw it in full. And it was about 3-4 years ago when I was shown it in class, and then we stopped watching it because that was my punishment that my class got. My teacher just stopped showing it to us. Luckily, I found it on TV one year, so I recorded it and I watched the whole thing, and I liked it. I thought it was very interesting. I liked the character developments. I like the character George and the stuff that he's going through, and I felt for him that, he's this guy that just keeps giving, but he never gets anything back, and I think the ending fit very well for him. Upon my first viewing, I was very surprised on how little time we got at the end with seeing the world where he isn't born. I expected it to be, a good majority of the film, but again, it's only like the last 20-30 minutes of it. But I think it's alright, because the amount of stuff that we were given knowledge about George, between him being a kid and seeing all these events as him growing up, leading to the present day in this film, I think it was important that we got to see all that. So I'm not really bothered by the fact that we got very little time seeing that alternate world. Although it would have been nice to stay in it for a little longer. I think the acting was good, the plot's really good, the story, the way that was going was good. I like the effects that the angels are given, although it does seem a bit cheap and cheesy, because it just looks like stars, and the stars are blinking. That's to indicate that the angels are talking. It was weird the first time I saw it, because I didn't understand it, but then over time I understood. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what they are, I guess. I guess they just didn't make a set for like heaven or something, but alright, stars work, I guess. Overall, it's a classic film to watch around the holidays. I definitely think you would enjoy it if you've never seen it before. I would definitely suggest you'd see it if you've never seen it before. This way you would get a better understanding to where the whole "I wish I was never born" cliche came from, because it's important to find the origins of these things, or else it'll drive you insane forever. And with that, I turned the color back on. And with that all said, that's all I gotta say about It's a Wonderful Life. I like my life. I now want to pass the questions over to all of you folks at home, because I can. Have you ever seen It's a Wonderful Life? Do you enjoy watching it if you've seen it? Do you not enjoy it? What are your opinions on the movie if you have seen it? Do you agree or disagree with anything that I've said in this video? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for day 23 of 25 Wild Christmas Review Days. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and I've chosen a very special film to talk about. It's one of the two films that I have not spoken about yet. You can kind of take a guess which one it is. There are two specific films that I made sure that I talked about, both on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but we're only just going to focus on tomorrow for now. So come back tomorrow. I really enjoy this film. You're going to hear me talk about it probably a lot. You can probably guess what it is just because I've hinted about it in the past, and that's all I'm gonna tell you for now. Thanks for watching The Wild Review on The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.